Yeah, they're coming up
Not
early on
really.
Friday,
The-
Catherine.
What?
They're coming up, Justin, and them are coming
On Friday.
up Friday sometime around 3:30, 4 o'clock.
Looks like
Yeah,
we're
when
a
we're
go.
done with interviewing,
Are
you
you
got
ready?
You got waitlisted
Yep.
there.
We'll call this to order then at 6 PM. Roll call, Tasia, if you would, please.
Bruce Belargin.
Here.
Katie Thermos.
Here.
Marie Colbeth.
Here.
Bob Gunther.
Here.
Patty Jo Forsberg. Catherine Cranston.
Here.
Lori Belargin.
Here. Thank you, Tasia. Our district mission, together we engage, educate, and empower all learners, bridging their passions to pathways to create successful futures and positively contribute to our local and global communities. No, I don't, unless some of you want to code comment. We're on to item 4, the 2018-19 quarter 3, budget to actual. Dave gets 15 minutes, the clock hit, no.
So I wanted everybody to go through the webpage, because I know, I guess Patty Jo's not here, but she had asked me some questions about where to find stuff, so I just wanted to illustrate again. If you go to the Business Services and Operations page on the district website,
So will you have time to go through this with her again? Because she's.
I've offered, yeah, so we'll see
Okay.
if she has some
Sorry.
time. So on that website, Business Services and Operations, it's under the district pull-down tab. Somerset Finance is in the upper right. Financial Reports is the second red hyperlink. And then we're gonna look at Budget to Actual, which is the group of reports in the lower left-hand corner of that page. And I also wanted to mention, attached to every month, the monthly Budget to Actual, the first 4 pages are the code information. That can also be found here. It's on the bottom right of this page, code information it's called. So if you click on 1819 Q3 BTA, that is what we're gonna look at tonight. And as I've kind of said, as we go through these,
Hey, hi. Oh, it's not.
each one kind of looks like the others for the same quarter, year over year. And the same is true this time around. The little unique things we talk about are usually in the one section of the report, so I'll kind of just go through this fairly quickly. Stop me if you have any questions. Obviously, it's out there for review at any time, and you can look at previous years as well, the quarter 3 reports. So this is the second of 3. We'll do the last one. I'm anticipating early August, right around, maybe right after audit, the auditors are on site, right around that time, which will be pretty close to final numbers, though not final. If we look at the start of this, all these numbers exclude transfers to other funds such as special ed. So that would, you may look at the Fund 10 expenditure total and say, oh, that's too low. That's because that transfer to Fund 27 is excluded from that. So you can see the comparison through the 3rd quarter, which is through March 31st, between this year and last year. It's comparable as pretty much every year is. You can see the next discussion is broken down by function. The summary function, you see this on a monthly basis. This is where expenditures are made. You can see the budget, the year-to-date expenditure, and the percentage year-to-date. And there's some notes underneath regarding a couple of those bigger areas. Then we have the pie graphs, which show the budgeted composition of the pie, the district budget pie, and where we are at through quarter 3. This kind of illustrates the timing of certain expenditures. It also shows, I guess it will show during the next report, how closely we have adhered to our budget once we're done with actual expenditure. On page 4, it's the summary function comparison. Just the main summarized expenditure areas: instruction, support service, and non-program transactions. You can see where we're at. There's also the chart, illustrates the same. And then the expense ratio, which again is kind of like that pie. It illustrates timing of expenditures, and we should end up looking like the budgeted percentage. And it's, you can also compare to last year, this is the same information. The next page, we start by object. That shows what has been purchased. You can see again, breakdown compared to last year. Oh, I'm sorry, this has the expense ratio and the fiscal year to date percentage.
Dave,
Yes?
how come, if this is Q3, why are we not, oh, is it because, I'm looking at salaries and benefits, it goes until September 1st and the fiscal year is over
June 30th.
June 30th?
So fully.
Because I would have expected it would be 75%, but,
Right, so at the beginning of the report, it's a good question, Lori. And obviously I'm breezing through this, so, you know, I didn't mention this specifically, but the first page, it says 58.3 of payroll of school year employees and 75% of payroll of year-round employees, so that's where that matches up. And some of the notes regarding the various expenditure areas also mention that.
okay.
So again, breakdown by object. The closer examination is where we look at some of the interesting areas that come up year over year. This list has grown since we started it. I think we had maybe 3 or 4 the first time. So we do add to this, and we do kind of take a look at a snapshot of where things are during these quarterly reports. I like to illustrate generally that there's different budget areas that are right on budget. There's some that are certainly over or going to go over, and there's some that are under and definitely will end up under. You can see gas and oil for heat, that was a bit higher. We had our natural gas curtailed a few times, and so we had to use propane and fuel oil at the middle school. Those costs are a little higher than we would expect, certainly higher than natural gas. And so that causes those total expenditures to increase. This is like the second year in a row, I believe we've had curtailment after 5 or 6 without any. So we don't usually anticipate that. Electricity is a bit down through the end of March. I did look at that where it's kind of creeping back up, and if the days get hot, that will catch up as well, catch up to budget. Snow removal, last time we talked, the previous quarter, it had been great. It had been a mild winter, and obviously we had a lot of snow since then. So that number isn't quite final yet. There will be additional expenditure added onto that, so we're already over budget. That's an example of something where we're over this year. Buildings and Grounds Department, right on. IT, also, the tuitions look good. Some of those can vary based on when we receive them from, if it's a given university or WTS system school. Legal is back on after being way off last year, so that's good news. The CIA, you can see, is lower, but there are some curriculum adoptions. I've seen some big requisitions go through very recently, so that's something that will catch up. Sub wages are a bit high. I'd anticipate that will end up over budget. Also because we include now the full-time sub, that cost will end up in this code as well. Through the end of March, only, I think it was $3,200 or so of that full-time sub is part of that 131,000. So one of the notes below, you can see 52% of that, or 68,000, is attributable to long-term subs. So I like to give you a breakdown of long-term versus regular short-term daily subs, what that's comprised of. And the non-vested HRA, again, we were under last year. We're under even more so far this year. This may be an area where we look at, in discussion with J Accounter, changing how we budget this, changing the utilization rate. Because if you scroll now to page 6, you can see the last 6 years and this year of activity, and the first 3 years are above the average, and the last 3 are below, and we're below again. So it looks like possibly the trend is changing, and this is a place we should look at reducing what we budget. Special ed, it's looking good. It's on pace. There's a chart. There's the expense ratio. Revenues, you can see we're a little bit less, but part of that is due to the composition of our revenues, where aid is slowly decreasing and levy and categorical aids are slowly increasing, and open enrollment is slowly increasing. And also in 17-18 in particular, you can see the bottom line, other revenues, where it's $208,000. That includes the big property insurance claim from 17-18, so that was a unusual revenue, and that's increasing that a bit. And then cash flow timing. Here's the discussion that I like to put out there illustrating. You can see by month and cumulatively expenditures versus revenues. We've gotten state aid payments in December and March. We've gotten tax revenues in January and February. But now there's going to be a lull again. And so you can see cumulatively we've caught up. Finally, revenues have matched and slightly exceeded expenditures for the year to date through March. But now we're not going to get significant revenues again until June. So it will, the blue line will dip below the red again there. So without utilization of fund balance and the line of credit when needed, we'd have a hard time paying the bills. And then the summary, you can see the discussion based on the second paragraph there. You say, look at the different percentages of the big school year summary functions, where they're at fiscal year to date expenditure-wise compared to where we're at in the school year and the fiscal year having passed. And the takeaway is, like we see every time, some things are over budget, some things are under. A lot of stuff is on budget so far through March, and there's no big red flags as far as us having to worry about going over budget through the third quarter. So obviously you get this information in a more condensed form on a monthly basis, and we'll talk again after the year's closed in August, and go from there. Questions?
I thought when I looked at the gas and oil, I'll have to go back to that page, I thought it was lower than what was budgeted for the year.
Yes.
And aren't we mostly done using that at this time of year?
Well, you can see even last year through March, that's 78.
Oh, this is only going through March.
Yeah.
Oh.
So we were only at 78% of what we spent through March last year. So I'd anticipate something similar this year. We're going to increase a little more.
I was wondering if we maybe saved enough on gas and oil to pay for the snow removal. Do you
That's,
have any idea?
gas and oil, I wouldn't anticipate. Electricity, possibly. Yeah. But that also depends. Again, if it gets hot, then our electricity usage will go up. Something George and I look at and we discussed today, actually. So.
Thank you.
Anything else for Dave? Thanks, Dave. The walkthrough is always helpful. All right, then, we are on to item 5, staffing. Dr. Bezick?
Thank you. Last session we talked a little bit about 4 different scenarios of staffing requests, 3 in the buildings and the nurse. And I sent you pretty much the details of how that will all come down and transpire, if it's palatable. And really, there's 4 areas. The elementary school really has the true .5 addition of time. middle school and high school have a reshuffling of people. And then the nursing scenario that, I don't have all the answers I want for that yet, but you've got the framework of what's roughly what it would cost to put a full-time school nurse on board. And the piece I don't have with that is I want to have a conversation at the state level, but the lady in charge of this is on vacation for another week or so. But from all the information we have so far, it looks like every MBC school has a registered nurse on staff. And then they use a variety of aides or paras to assist in the other buildings like we have had in the past. And the recommendation that I threw out there, as far as the cost analysis of it, I think you've seen in there, we're basing the numbers of the school nurse at about a $60,000 wage. Now, that could vary once we get out there, but putting that against the other pieces, whether we go with, you want somebody full-time in each building, or as the recommendation was, we start out with full-time school nurse with one para, with that nurse being stationed at the elementary school and the para being over to middle school. And then the idea is that if we have any emergencies or low-level things, the office staff in high school can take care of that until the nurse can get over there. So that's the scenario we're painting. However, whatever your thoughts are, whatever direction, we've survived with office paras, but, or, health aides, but I don't think I'd recommend going forward with that scenario. So if we talk about the nursing piece now first, and so again, the recommendation would be, that we move forward in some with the nurse, and then however, if you want someone in each building, okay, but I guess I'd rather go with one to begin with, to see what our need is and if we can handle it. And then if we can't, then we put on another para.
I have some questions for Shannon, because it seems like your building's going to be most greatly affected because you'd be losing your healthcare office person. But I know you do have a lot of people in your office, so have you thought or talked with, would there be like one person in your office who'd be primarily designated as that healthcare person?
So my office aide position where John Siggins was, Laura Bignell is now doing that. Due to the nature of how many students on average visit our health office, I do think that we could manage it with the office staff that we have. We certainly we have 2 students right now that are diabetic, so there's some needs there that I think a nurse could help kind of facilitate. Otherwise, on average, we're seeing 2 kids a day, and most of the time it's, I need a Tylenol, I need an aspirin. We're not seeing the volume of like an elementary school, for example. So I think that we could sustain it as long as, we kind of knew the process in terms of the nurse being available if we needed it, those kinds of things, because just for the most part at the high school level, we just don't currently have what I would consider a need to necessarily sustain that we couldn't quite likely navigate with our current office staff.
Well, we have the advantage of having this campus.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of schools can't, if they're sharing a staff, it's ridiculous, but, she just has to walk over.
What's the education level of a healthy, is
2 years from now.
CNA,
The people in our healthcare offices today, you mean? Do you know?
Mine's a CNA.
EMS?
Yeah,
They've got-
that was EMS before she came into the office.
It varies,
CPR, teacher,
but,
CNA.
I just don't want somebody
She's a
feeling
CNA.
like.
CNA, that's pretty, about the basic level.
Yeah.
So do you offer somebody an opportunity to get the extra training that we?
I think, and this is just my opinion, I think, and I can only speak for my building, I think having all of our office staff going through some low-level triage training, I think is a good idea, just based off of, again, what I see coming in and out of our office every day. It's not apples to apples to the other 2 buildings for sure. I mean, But I think being able to do some of those, again, surface level things, I think would be very, and we do that now. I mean, there's days where if our health aide is gone, then we just rearrange people, we navigate it, kids still get their meds, kids still get kind of what they need, so.
Had a good conversation with Lisa Ramsey the other day, and she's been in subbing in her different health offices and talking about not just the services that are provided, but the lack of attention to some of the equipment that we should have, that and stocking of different pieces that we should have in case we have an emergency, and a lot of this isn't being done right now. And I think part of that, a school nurse would be on top of what's happening in these offices, so there's some consistency. And the school nurse, really, one of the biggest charges is, influence on district policy, as far as, how we
I'm
handle.
totally on board with having
Absolutely.
school nurse, I just
Just
worry, because they'll
liability.
be gone some days, and, so I think the training, other training would be.
And I think we would just create a plan, so if our school nurse is gone, this is what then happens and how we run the day. And I think we would have to, if it looks like, I mean.
Well,
because
our
then we
school
could
nurses,
discuss.
a sub comes in for them.
Right, so,
There's, they go right into a sub and put in, and there's subs that come in and sub for health aides and for nurses.
So I'd be a whole lot more comfortable with that, because, they will be taking days off like everybody does, but, yeah.
So on the nursing piece, we'd, like to, permission to post and,
Yep.
interview for this position, and, again, follow the recommendation. And again, if we get partway through the year and we feel a greater need at the high school that we can't have, then we'll come back and, look for a health aide.
So do we need or is the board as a whole, do we want a motion to say that we're supporting it, or are you okay with saying is a not general
I think we
consensus?
need a motion, but I have another question. So does that mean we're laying off 2 people that we currently employ?
Well, Pam has another position that we have to talk about that was vacated and how the shuffle goes, so I would say possibly 1, but we don't know. Again, we'll have to determine.
because I still not filled my office position.
So we have an office staff position, so at least 1, to answer your question, Lori, we'd lay off 1.
And if that one would the person we're laying off have an opportunity to apply internally for other aid positions that are open?
Sure.
For like a transfer kind of thing?
Well, anything that's open, they'd have an opportunity to apply for it.
That's if it's posted externally,
Yeah.
but do you ever?
Well, I would say any job that we open up, that whoever the person is would have an opportunity to apply for that.
Is that different than any other time? I would think that they could apply any time. Is it?
Yeah,
Just
they can,
internally.
and we've had such a high turnover with aides that they're probably all posted externally. So, yeah. So I'll make a motion that we, post for is it going to be a registered nurse? or
Licensed school nurse.
Cause that's different.
That's a different certification.
Now Lenny was really clear on that, man.
Yeah, it's a different it's a certification on top.
Do you have any idea what the availability is?
Well, New Richmond just went out, and they had, 6 to 8 applicants, I think. So which is, everything you read, they're not out there, but now all of a sudden they had a pool of applicants, which encouraged us because we thought we were gonna have a tough time, so.
So Lori made a motion to post for a licensed school nurse. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Patty Jo. Any other questions on that? Salary.
Right now, we're basing our numbers on a $60,000 salary, so we'll have to see where that comes in and then come back and say, wherever, because we're not really sure exactly where it's gonna be. But all of our.
And we have to
budgets-
allow you some wiggle room because of market.
Yeah, you know, if it's significant, believe me, I'll come back, but if, you know, if we're in that 58 to 62, I would think, you know, we have some, we got a deal, but if it's anything, you know, more significant, I'll get out with a email that, but that's what we're basing it on right now.
Is that what New Richmond hired theirs for?
I don't know, but Dave got that number, I don't know what you based that on.
It's my understanding 50s are competitive.
So I guess maybe 60 is a conservative number, so we may be below that.
And I'm sure it all depends on experience.
Yep.
So we have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Lori, for making the motion. Thank you, Patty Jo, for seconding that. We are on to, if there's, you had something
No,
else.
that's one of four.
Yeah.
Okay, so now looking at the elementary school, out of the 3 requests, the elementary school involves additional time, which is a 0.5 physical education, and because it involves a lot of moving pieces, that's why Pam's here, because she's got it's kind of like the boundaries, we're trying to straighten out boundaries. With this addition, it'll fix some missing pieces in the elementary. But go ahead, Pam, why don't you?
So so right now, in the middle of our day, we have a .2 shared FIAD staff with middle school. So the teacher comes and teaches just kindergarten in the middle of the day, which is fine and good, except for that does not give us any opportunity to have common prep or prep across the day. And so I want to not have that .2 anymore and get a .5 that can now teach halftime FIAD so that students can get FIAD twice every cycle. Does that make sense? Okay. I know you get it, but, so it's tricky because it's, right now, yes, kindergarten is covered and they're getting it, but it only buys 1 grade level. And I can make a 5-section, 5-day cycle so that kids can get FIAD twice every other day, or by getting a .5.
How do you do,
So the .2 then would go back to the middle school.
how do you take care of the space? It was just a ball and they've got 2 gyms, so does
They have 2
that-
gyms, there's a wall.
No, you buy the gym.
I don't know, I've kind of offered to them too, depending, they could, I don't know, depends. If they wanted to do a team thing, they certainly could, but there is a wall that comes down, because right now, we have 2 classes going on there in the middle of the day.
We used to always have split gym when the middle school was the high school. That was the way it was. Any other questions on that one?
Would this be a new person at .5?
Yes.
Okay. And do you think that's gonna be hard to fill?
I hope not. What I'm hoping is that then they would maybe wanna, cause the tricky piece is that it's gonna kind of rotate mornings and afternoons, that they would maybe wanna sub that other half of their day. And if there was someone who wanted to get into the district, because, you know, primary kids have afternoon prep and morning kids have morning, or intermediate kids have morning prep, so it would be every other. So it works out on paper, but they maybe would sub that the other half of their day to give them full-time. I mean, I can tell you they would have full-time work, I mean.
And
Or
PE
short.
jobs are not a dime a dozen. It's not like it's harder to get a job for a PE teacher than it is a regular classroom teacher. So hopefully somebody would be willing to do that.
So does anyone have any concerns with that? Thanks, Bruce. Any concerns with that, or are we okay with making a motion on that one as well, or do you want more time? If someone would like to make a motion, this would be a good time.
I'll make a motion to add .5 PE at the elementary level.
Thank you, Catherine. Anyone interested in seconding?
I'll second.
Thank you, Katie. So we've got a motion and a second on adding the addition of a .5 PE at the elementary. Any other questions on that? All those in favor, say yes?
What does that do with the state requirements? What's going
The
on?
state requirements, so technically, if you look at, we would be meeting it if the 5-day cycle was Monday through Friday, because there's a difference between a 5-day cycle and once a week. Okay, so like even the first day of school is a Tuesday, which would be a day 1. So it's a little tricky, but the state requirements is the 90 minutes a week, but ours would be 90 minutes of 5-day cycle. Most weeks we'd be within that, you know what I mean?
So with the .2, are we meeting the state requirements?
I don't believe so. I mean, we are, but right now it's these little 30-minute chunks so they go 30, so kids right now within their time are transitioning 3 times. So they might go to a 30-minute, and so it's really creating a lot of behaviors in the hallway,
That's
a lot of
crazy.
transitions for kids.
And 5 minutes
Teachers-
lost of
Well,
instruction.
and teachers are ramped up because they know what they've gotta teach in 30 minutes, and there's no learning targets or settle time or transition time, and just adding that, making it 45 minutes is just gonna kinda calm the whole system down, and also give teachers a common prep, so they're not all staggered like that. So yes, they will be in compliance when we have 5-day weeks, it's just those tricky not 5-day weeks.
So this it sounds like it's solving more than just a Pi Ed position.
Well, making
It's
more-
rearranging the schedule so people have common preps and they're 45 minutes instead of 30,
minutes.
and now kids aren't transitioning as often.
Right. Some students are transitioning 3 times within their prep time.
That's crazy.
And it is crazy.
For high needs kids, that's terrible.
It's very stressful.
Even for not so high need kids.
And
it'd
then
be
some days they
high.
have 45, it's just a really interesting schedule, which was built to meet the FIED requirements and really get kids physically active. So I'm just trying to make it happen a different way.
Are there any other questions?
Question?
Yeah, so the .2 goes back to the middle school, so that's where I'm getting.
Yeah, I know.
lost.
Yeah, I was gonna wait and ask that after we
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, that's, yeah.
Okay,
I'm gonna say, what are you gonna do with your .2 now?
so,
Oh, many things.
so there's something
It-
you.
It'll free up, I mean, right now with just the way our FIED is structured, I'll be able to offer not 30, 32, 33 in a class, just because of how you have to have it once every semester. That's how the state law is written, and how that looks within each semester is different, which causes us to reduce the number of sections, so all kids can have it twice throughout the course of a year at 7th and 8th grade level. So they take it 6 weeks in the fall, 6 weeks in the spring. Well, that causes the class sizes to be bigger, so I'll be able to do that. I'm also looking at, one of our mantras has been to try to extract band and choir rehearsals away from our intervention time, which is a huge challenge, and so that would potentially free up some kids who aren't in band or choir to be able to receive some FIED. So what that does is it allows me flexibility to try to do some different pieces.
.2 does all that?
Absolutely,
Oh my gosh.
absolutely it does. I mean, that gives me another block, a whole nother hex, like that's a ton of time to be able to work with. And so, yeah, it really does make a difference. It gives me then almost 2 full-time health FIED people in my building, which that's a dream, because now I have, so.
So you have a .5 and then still a .2,
Well,
so we have a
So give it
.7
.2.
overall with 2 different people? This is what I'm trying to,
it would be, no,
Well,
well,
you'd
the
just be adding
point
.2
two,
to his.
you're just putting more, a .2, so the person that was a 1.0 and was .8 for me and .2 for her becomes just a 1.0 in the middle school.
So
Right, I
there's
don't
only
get
an
my
addition of
.2
.5.
anymore.
It's an additional 0.5 is what it
where I was
is.
getting kind
Right.
of lost. I
Nope.
thought we still had somebody that was willing to work at it.
No,
No,
No, it's on the
No.
person.
Better.
They just stay in your building.
All right, then, so we have a
You might
motion
have
and a
to
second on the table. Are there any other questions? For the, I'm sorry, did you have one?
Sorry, missed it. I'm at a water main break at work right now,
Big
so.
deal.
Is that health and FIAD, are they getting posted together? Sorry.
We haven't gotten to me yet.
We're not to
We're
that
not
high school
there
yet,
yet.
this is just
This
elementary.
is just elementary, .5.
So
We'll get
that one,
there.
we're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
This is
Okay.
just the .5 at the
You good.
elementary, which will actually give
You
middle
can talk
school.
for 15 more minutes on the phone until we get to that.
Too.
You know how water mains are, Bob.
All right, so we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor of the addition of a .5 at the elementary school signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That one carries. So on to your third.
Okay, let's go with the high school, first since you brought that up, Bruce. Shannon, do you wanna just
Yep,
dive into it?
Please, yep. So I need to refill my .5 health position, basically no matter what. So I'm proposing that we add on to that, and make that a 1.0 health and FIED combined position. I think Mark had put in his weekly update some rationale I have for that. My FIED numbers, with Bruce being the only 1.0 FTE at the high school, I have some classes averaging well over 45 students per class. FIED is a very popular course in the high school, and at one time prior to me being at the high school, we did have additional FTE in FIED. I can't speak to where it went or why it's not there, but trying to sustain our numbers of the 1.0 is not feasible. I have concerns regarding safety in our gym, our weight room, at least in the mornings, and this is an excellent thing. Our morning workouts right now are averaging between 70 and 80 kids. The difference there is that in the mornings, Bruce has coaches that come in, they can take small group of kids. We've got some in the gym, some in the weight room, some in the hallway doing lunges, so we can kind of break out in terms of that huge number. During the school day, obviously that's not how that works. And to be honest with you, trying to sustain a 0.5 health position, I fear that we will be rotating through people every year, because people will obviously stay for a short time until they find a full-time position. I think these two things marry quite well together. I wanted to wait this year before I officially kind of came to ask for this, because I knew right when I moved to this position that we were already down FTE in our FIED world anyway, but I wanted to see how we could kind of mix and match a little bit. Then I wanted to see how it kind of worked out with our schedule, to see if that would alleviate some numbers with some sections, and it's just to the point where we can't sustain having just one person teach FIED at the high school right now. So I'm proposing that we're filling the health position, which is already on the books anyway, adding that additional FTE, to alleviate some of that. We have a library support staff person that is retiring that I am not refilling, to help kind of fill in some of that money there. Obviously if the health aid piece goes through, then there's that piece as well. We're already this year, this position was halftime health, and if you try to remember way back, we also added on this position at one point also being a halftime aide. So this person was doing supervision in the afternoons. So there's already money in kind of all different places in terms of, so it's not brand new FTE in terms of the money piece of it. It's sitting there in little chunks, and I'm sure Dave can maybe explain it even better than I can, but.
Well, the dollars and cents piece of it, as I explained in there, as Shannon said, when we hired the halftime health, we didn't have a Spanish teacher, if you remember that, and that was the person that was covering we needed the aid time. So that is gone. So the cost savings of the library help and this position, actually this is a money saver. We'll come out ahead on this move if we.
You're welcome. Okay. Hey.
It is.
Right?
But I also liked your idea of maybe them offering some outside of the box FIED classes. You know, the yoga or spinning, or I don't know, but that, we need to have some things like that. I love that idea.
Kids are asking for that.
Going up to a 1.0 or 0 going up to a 0.5?
It is currently a 0.5 position, going up to a 1.0.
But in this sense, we don't have anyone in that position now. It's an open position, so we want to advertise as a 1.0.
And you're reducing.
Pardon?
You're reducing your paras.
Right, it's a cost savings to the tune of, by my numbers, about $4,000 or $5,000 we're saving on this move.
Well, that's a no-brainer.
So is health is separate from FIED?
So this person would be
1.0
teaching
to
health
FIED?
and FIED.
Okay, so this will be, is it like 0.5 health, 0.5 FIED, or it's
Yep.
just mixed? Okay.
Yep.
But it's a common licensure.
Yes.
Are they still in middle school too? Is it health in middle school, high school?
Right, so my 1.0, so I have a 1.0 straight FIED, and then now a 1.0 health and FIED, and adaptive. So my other 1.0 does my adaptive FIED.
So it's just 0.5 at the high school for health,
Correct.
that's it, no middle school?
Right, this person will
ET,
only do
yeah.
high school.
Yep.
You'll get some good candidates for that job.
Yeah, I hope so.
I think so.
You know, we've had a great pool of young student teachers and things like that. I mean, I'm so excited about the people we're bringing on right now.
So are we looking for a motion then on the moving from a 0.5?
I'll make a motion to post for a 1.0 health and FIED.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Bob. Any other questions on this one? Everyone in support of that signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have approved the posting for a 1.0 health FIED in the high school.
Okay.
All right.
The last one is at the middle school where, because of the numbers coming in, we're able to add on to basically Joe's position there, and half-time of that. And so I had Sarah post as a science position, just so we can get out in the market, so we can get some feedback on that. But this is it's a cost neutral piece. Last year when Sarah came to us on this with Joe, as long as it stayed in the budget and it wasn't an additional FTE, and you could work it and be creative. In fact, that's the message I've given to everyone, is if you can be creative and come in with no cost, we can entertain these positions. And that's what she arranged last year. I think you were able to short a science section or what have you, and that opened up Joe to do a half-time behavior specialist. It's worked out fantastic. We got a small group coming in the 4th grade, which opens up basically a section. So we want to move him into a full-time, add another half-time to his schedule. Again, it's not an additional cost, it's just reshuffling the deck over there as far as what he's going to be doing. We did something similar to that last year when we added the half-time to the middle school counselor also. We didn't post, it was in the approved, you guys approved that position because it was an additional cost. This isn't an additional cost. So we're looking at moving Joe for next year. Now again, I think in my notes I put, it works for next year with a small section, with a small class coming in. Now I would say what we're doing here is conditional based on how our numbers are, and we can sustain it within the FTE allotment that we have. If we have a large group come in and we need that section back, we may have to come back and say, you know what, Joe, you're either gonna be halftime again or back in the classroom. So again, that halftime was conditional. I would wanna make this full-time a conditional piece, as every year we look at the numbers and see if we can sustain it.
That's true every year.
Well,
And every
that's
year
because
people are
you have the
people are
advantage of
moving.
doing that because you're not union. If you were union, you wouldn't have the option to do that.
You mean put people in different positions? Cause I moved to like 3 different grade levels and shuffled my responsibilities, so.
Yeah,
And so Joe is still on the teacher contract, so he's just got a different level of responsibility, out of the classroom. And so when I looked to make that move, it was, I have to move another teacher from 5th grade to 6th grade to follow that class, because my incoming 5th graders are a smaller group than what's going to 6th grade. And so, he's still on the teacher contract, he's not performing in the realm of an administrator, and so I thought this is a bonus, because there's not a person in my building that doesn't want him to be able to do what he's currently doing
well,
full-time.
and I saw on the staff survey, that was really a low area, discipline. That, I mean, on the staff survey, or do we deal with discipline consistently? So we need people in his position.
So what does he do? What does the behavior interventions do?
I don't.
Well, where would,
By his size, he intimidates.
Well, that's something.
So he has done a ton with restorative chats this year. He has sat in on classrooms to not only monitor students, but help teachers and give suggestions. He has housed kids in his classroom for smaller group work sessions and problem solving. We've done some circles with him. Whatever I need, he's on the playground and we're doing reteachings on the playgrounds, is walking around, look, this is how we play appropriately. Lunchroom behaviors, you name it, he's working.
Whatever
with-
child of the day.
Absolutely,
Yes.
and we have some really good friends that we get to work with a lot. And then some others that just pop up once and we intervene and we go on. And so, sitting from where I'm at, the level of I would say pressure on me to try to do it all and be available to teaching staff to help them grow as well it's been amazing. And I think our kids really are the benefactors in this, because they know, yes, we joke when Mr. Hutter has his Chromebook in his hand, they wonder what's coming, but it has gone, I think, better than any of us would have anticipated, as far as the ability for him to kind of be a little bit of everywhere and to support.
And this is really common. Every school has 1 or 2 behavior interventionists now. They all do.
What does the board do to support them? I mean, do they give, because it sounds like it's kind of like a counseling, psychology sort of, they should be specialized in some of those things. Does he have to take his CEs for this, or learn those tactics, or is it just?
Well, his
kind of
classroom
good?
experience and just his experience with kids, I mean, he's open to anything if we wanted to. He hasn't yet asked. He and I have had a lot of conversations about what more do you need in order to make this position successful, and his number one thing right now is time. I need to be able to have the time. If we could do this, if I could have this full-time, then we can really develop it. We've done a lot of staff circles this year. We're using circles in our advisory groups. We want to get to the point where we're restoring and repairing harm through circles. But on his halftime right now, he can't do it as effectively as we would like, and we can't work together at that point as effectively, so.
Would there need to be extra, training? I mean, would he need to be sent to extra training and stuff to, especially for full-time? I'm just thinking restorative justice.
Sure.
I know restorative justice.
Yep.
Some professional development.
Does he need professional development stuff for that position? Is it someone hired into that position typically have that level, or how does that work?
Well, sometimes when you find people, you find people that have administrative degrees that just aren't using them.
Yeah.
You know, we have a number of people, you know, on staff, so they have some of that training there now. I don't know what Joe's background,
He's doing this to see if he wants to step his toe into administration. And so this is a good opportunity for him to work on that. So I think because it's brand new and we didn't really know where it was going to go, if he needs any kind of professional development, I would be more than happy to support anything that he would feel would be beneficial to him and to our kids, so.
Well, and it's part of our strategic plan,
Yeah.
so.
I guess people should be trained for things like that, especially if stuff happens with kids. Like, you wanna be able to hit that rather than not hit that. I mean, you wanna be able to address it accordingly
Yes.
with the proper training and not hit that.
Learning new initiatives and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Can you explain, both you, Sarah at the middle school and Pam at the elementary school, these behavior interventionists are new this year? And with the restorative justice that we are trying to implement with the staff. So my understanding of restorative justice is that it's important that the staff person where the problem occurred, if it's a classroom situation, is involved in that restorative justice piece. So can you talk to us, describe how the behavior interventionist is a part of that if it's the responsibility of the classroom teacher?
So what I would say is we've had a shift this year. So if there is a behavior infraction, teachers have the opportunity to either have Joe present at the conversation or they can handle the conversation by themselves. We have the 5 questions on a sheet. We process through it with kids. Some teachers choose to do it if the infraction is something kind of smaller that we just need to have a conversation. They have the conversation themselves. If it's something bigger or they're not comfortable,
Or you don't have time.
or you don't have time, then we either A, find a time that works, or B, Joe takes it or I take it. And that's how we have found the opportunities to be able to use those restorative. And we're using mostly just chats right now, which take a lot less time than an official, than a circle. So a restorative chat with the 5 questions, what happened, what were you thinking, going through that piece takes a lot less time than preparing kids. Our kids aren't quite ready for circles yet because we haven't done them enough yet.
That's when I trained you guys, I
Yep.
said, start with chats
Right.
and staff circles.
And so that's what we've been doing is chats, staff circles, and very low stakes advisory circles, just answering more fun
Same
questions.
at elementary.
And so, but that piece, we've been really, and been very purposeful in, you know, as we're wanting to do these chats, because we know having the conversation, that's where the power is. It can happen whenever it works, and if it doesn't work in your schedule, then Joe or I will take the conversation. It's fine, but then always touching back base with the teacher as far as here's what we talked about, and here's our plan going forward.
Something I was gonna add is because it is so new and teachers want to do things perfectly, many of them either invite myself or Kristen in to kind of support or kind of walk through or kind of see. Most want to give it a go. Some are saying, you know, will you take this on? And then of course a lot of our behaviors happen at recess. So she's processing a lot of those and trying to. But that said, we still do try to bring in the classroom teacher. We still do try to, you know, see, because we want them a part of it. We don't want it to be this surprise, here's what happened at recess today, so maybe she's communicating with them. Just kind of as case by case.
I can give you a perfect example. On the playground today, 2 of my kids got in a fist fight. I'm not even on the playground. I can't repair that harm. I'm not even there. So the behavior specialist goes out on the playground with the playground lady and the 2 kids, and they go off into a room and take care of it. And they were both in school suspension the rest of the day. I never saw them. But I got to still teach, you know, and so without a behavior interventionist, I'm taking care of this, and now I've got 25 kids who are not getting read aloud and they didn't get math, because I've got to deal with the fight that happened on the playground. That's where they're invaluable, because we get to still teach.
Well, and that's what I wanna make sure is happening, because it sounded like the teachers were being expected to do the restorative justice, which was interfering with their teaching, and then I didn't know what is the behavior interventionist doing then?
Well, I just gave an example, so are you better, clearer?
What helps. Do we have a job description for this position?
Yeah,
we do.
we did last year, we
Yeah,
came
we
up
made
with.
it last summer.
It was a part of the,
Yeah, when we
it was a part of
put
the
it in.
posting, and then we put it in. Yep.
So do we have, anyone interested in making a motion to increase the position of the behavior interventionist at the middle
No, I
school?
don't think we have.
I don't
We
think
don't have
we,
to.
no, it's not a new position, so I don't know if, unless you, I don't know, I'm kind of at a loss on how to throw this out there, because, you know, we've done it several different ways. And, you know, you look at on our consent agenda here, we've got the speech and language pathologist there. Those jobs have been shuffled around just by them agreeing to different times, but we thought we'd put them on here. So being an internal shuffle like this, you know, somehow the awareness and the agreement that we're doing this position, but I'm just a little leery of the pathway on how we should.
I think building principals should have options of shuffling as long as the FTE is not affected. And I love being told about it ahead of time, but what are we gonna post? There's nothing to post.
But what I'm posting is a replacement for the 6th grade position with the shuffling. It lands to be a science position, but it's really the posting for, the resignation from earlier this year. That's the
Right.
position that's being replaced.
Right.
So that is really what it is. It
That's
just doesn't look like it because it says science. So, cause I moved somebody else into that position.
And I think you should have you should be free to do that, to shuffle people around.
Okay, so I was gonna take this to the board retreat and
Yeah.
I had last minute, but there might be a simpler way of doing it that provides flexibility to administrators in making moves like this, but still provides the board with the information and how it might affect the budget. So, and I'll talk more about it, but I'm gonna just pass this stuff out. It's what the county does, and I know it's not the same as working at a school. But, it's what the various departments need to use. There's, in order, cause it does, you know, in my opinion, we do need to approve a position going from 0.5 to 1.0. I mean, that's just a perfect role, but.
Can I just ask one question?
Yep.
And this is actually a question for Dave. Is he
Yep.
going to still be classified on the teacher contract, or will it say behavior intervention coach on his contract?
He'll still have a teacher contract.
So will it say on his contract teacher, or will it say behavior intervention coach? Cause I think that plays a role as far, you know what I,
We
Is
try
that-
to keep them general.
right. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, I was just
No, it's
curious
okay.
about that piece.
So there's a way to do it, like, we refer to it as a reclassification, and that's where,
I'm gonna pass these
I don't-
back.
not
She
those.
sent these back.
Oh, right, those, not those.
yep, those two,
No, not
they
those.
explain.
No. That is what I passed out, you want,
I made these
oh, you made those copies.
so that they could take them and read them. I'm not expecting everybody to go through this
Oh,
tonight.
sorry, it looked different.
It is different.
It looked like
I-
the other documents
Yes, you
that
made these. I wound up making these today, so just to better explain.
Sorry.
But if you just take a look, so the board has provided the information as part of the, budget, right? Because these are all budget items. The problem you have with the school district is, you know, you're trying to hire positions, fill them this month, and we don't even know what our budget will be, you know, until August, September, October, November, could be
Better not be that
December. But, so as I was talking to Mark, it's a way of getting the information that, is beneficial to the board to see where our resources are going, to see what other positions you may have requested that Mark may have said, no. Does it have Mark's blessing or no? And then gives like the budget impact of these types of changes. So I'm wondering if the board might want to consider this, does you no good right now, but I'm thinking for next year's budget, if the board actually decided to set some money aside, some dollar amount, say 50,000, that is set aside in case there is a position request or changes for next budget year that we could make available like on July 1st. Are you following me? So it's a little complicated, but it gives good information, and you can do a reclassification of somebody's position from a 0.5 to a 1.0 without feeling it necessary to post, right? And it gives a lot, I think what we need is a little more flexibility in how we're doing this. And I do believe that it does need board approval, but I think if we incorporated a couple of little policy changes that it might make everybody happy.
Expedite it.
Yeah. So I know that
Are
was,
you gonna put this on the retreat agenda?
yeah,
I
if
think
you want me
that's a
to,
good
and it
idea.
gives everybody time to look at it and just think about it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and we can, yeah.
I have a quick question about that, so, and this is, again, my ignorance showing, and I'm fine with that, I'll own it. So someone can work in a behavioral interventionist position outside of their class as a teacher, and it's kind of a quasi-admin position, but be on the teacher contract.
Yeah, there's.
How does that
well, it's a
work?
basic, you know, a classification of teacher on special assignment, where, you know, they, obviously we need a teaching license, or we use a teacher in a different capacity. That's very common.
It's very, very common, I do it.
Especially if the teacher wants to become administration, then that's good experience for them.
Does that end up with problems of not being, working outside of your classification?
No, no.
Okay,
no.
that's, it's weird not having a union.
It's a whole different thing.
It's a totally different thing, so, okay.
So,
So my intention is very good with this, so if you guys would take a look through it.
I didn't
So
get
we
this
aren't
other piece when I
posting-
looked through it.
We aren't requesting posting for Joe's position, more so to fill.
No, we're posting the science position, which
Correct.
that teacher is going into the teacher, the position that was vacated this year.
Okay. So that's not even something we need to add dollars for, so.
No.
At this time,
Right.
so I would make a motion to increase the full-time behavior, the 0.5 behavior intervention coach at the middle school to full-time and post the science job.
Is there anyone interested in seconding Lori's motion to increase the behavioral interventionist at the middle school from 0.5 to full-time and posting for a science position of 0.5? Is that correct?
No, the science position is.
Yes,
is
it
aligned.
is.
Yes,
Okay,
it's
sorry.
fine.
Okay. I just didn't catch what she had said.
So I'll second it.
Thank you, Pia and Joe. So we have a motion and a second. I hope you don't make me repeat that, because I won't be able to get it, but maybe Tasia could.
Gotcha.
We got the gist of it, though. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And now it's formalized. Did you have anything more you wanted to
That's-
cover with staff?
That's enough. That's enough.
All right.
Pushing my luck.
Great, that went well. Let's see if we can fly through this next one. 6, the policy review. I had asked her if we could get some on here that wouldn't require a whole lot.
That was awesome. I appreciated that. If we got together, Lori has the notes.
We can combine 6 or 7.
Well, let's get these 4 approved or whatever. So
Well, I don't
was there
think we're
anything
gonna
major?
approve them at this time. I think, you
Okay.
know, this was just for discussion.
Okay,
But,
that's
Patty
correct.
Jo and Katie and I went over them, and there was only one thing that needed a check mark. And our thought, our recommendation would be not to check it. And that was in 3230, paragraph B, number 1.
Does it only fit 3230? Are you taking them each
Yep.
individually, or did it
Well,
fall
there's
for
some things we need to
4230?
talk about it. So right now, we're
Okay.
just doing 3230.
Okay.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
Do you see letter B, professional employees that
Mhm.
starts? And then if you go down to number 1, and you look at all the green, there's a spot with a parentheses where you can check it if you want that to be part of the policy. And Patty Jo and Katie and I did some research on it, and it would be our recommendation to not check that parentheses and remove that part of the sentence. But you have 2 weeks to look it over and see what you think.
Can you make a red line for the,
Are you able to cross through?
I don't know that it will, because it's a green right now, I don't know if it'll show up red, I don't remember. No, I can at least strike it through.
for next? Thank you.
But then, we had quite a long conversation about this policy. The conflict, that number 1, the provision of any private lessons or services for a fee unless the provision of services is arranged outside of school and is separate from and in addition to regular support provided to students as part of the staff members' regular duties. So,
I can give an example.
oh no, that's not
Okay.
it. But I don't know if there's anybody in the
Yeah.
district who even is going to know the answer to this because it happened so long ago. What, we used to offer driver's ed
Yeah.
as part of,
Our
that was
curriculum.
the school.
School,
We
yeah.
owned it, right.
Yeah. Why did that change? Why was that dropped?
Because it was costing school districts too much money.
That's typically what it was, that people were going outside anyway.
And we had to hire instructors. and
Just the driver's ed?
Yeah.
Not the over the road?
The classroom.
The behind the wheel
Classroom
was done
too.
through the school as well.
Everything.
But I'm
Mr.
saying,
Barno and I
teachers
did a
made
lot of driving
money.
together.
Teachers made a lot of money in the summer.
that's the over the road part.
Classroom,
Classroom too.
behind the
Classroom too.
wheel, all of it.
Yeah, it used to be where the classroom was for, you get credit in school for it.
But here's an example of where this comes into play often with music. They can, in my
Oh,
district,
right.
the music teacher can offer private lessons after school. But it should not be on the school's property and it should not be the school's equipment. Like my music teacher offers, but he was having them come right up to his classroom and got in trouble. It has to be outside, so now they go to the kids' house and do it, but. Or to a church, yeah. So that would cover voice lessons.
Part of our discussion was, because it was just driving that we were talking about, and it was like, well, we looked at our website, and we only have one driving school on there. So do we, as a district, need to incorporate more? And I'm not, it's just, when you look at the policy, that's what our discussion was about. You can each read the policy yourselves and decide.
There's other areas that offer driver's ed. WTC offers driver's ed right in Richmond and Hudson and all around. And there's another school in Richmond that offers it, and they're not school specific. So I didn't understand why we only offered the one, and especially when it's at a higher rate than the rest. kind of, I didn't know how that worked with our conflict of interest.
Not trying to take business.
No,
just We kind of
Because
have an
we were
obligation.
concerned about the conflict of interest and the outside of school thing, and we just don't wanna get into any trouble, that's all.
totally understand that. That's, I often wondered at what the arrangement had been, you know, from, because this has been going on for a long time,
I know, and
so.
these darn policies actually mean stuff.
Well, you know, 90% of them, until we have trouble, then it's a good thing we have the policy, but like I say, 90% of them we'll probably never use, but it's that one piece. Are you asking, do I need to do some little deeper investigation into the whole process of driver's training? What are you?
And you were talking about even just putting all of the service providers in the area rather than just one.
Is it compulsory that they use
No, but that's the only one we have.
B2B?
No, but so,
The only one that's there. But
where
we
did you
use the
see,
opposite,
where's
40,
this,
50, that's cheaper.
where is it listed as the only?
If you Google, cause my kid's going,
Right, yeah.
once he passes his
Yeah.
classes, he'll be going.
Don't let him teach you.
He's going to be
You
going
find
to
my kids.
driver's ed, so when I Google it for the school board, the only one that comes up is that one. And then there was a opening for people to be hired as driving instructors at WATC, so then I Googled WATCs, and there they are serving the same population online, drive time, all of the stuff, but they do it all around. So then I was wondering why we don't publicize all of it, and we only do the one.
It might be because it happened, it wasn't that long ago that the change happened, and that was just a way of informing people of an option. I think we don't wanna get into where we're advertising for everybody. Did WITC include the different options?
They only do their own,
Yeah,
because that's
so-
all they need to do, because they're the school that's running it. I mean, they
Right.
don't put out CBTC's course offering, because they're making money at their school doing it.
So
what's
whereas
the-
maybe instead of saying just the one that we have to offer,
Do you do driver's ed?
you know, the options are
Do you go
available.
The youth offerings?
Well, we don't even know if it's on the website right now.
Let me do some
Yeah.
research on it, cause it's, I always kinda wondered about it, but that's not a can of worms I wanted to open,
Yeah.
unless we had some issues with it.
Yeah,
If
so
we-
thanks.
Well, it's just, we got other things going on here. It's a great service what they provide.
It is.
You know, but we just wanna make sure we're doing the right thing.
Whatever it is.
But let me do a little work on that piece there. So-
Were there any others on that policy, 3230?
No, just that one
Okay.
check mark thing, you got check mark.
Is there any concerns about
Here's,
private lessons or anything that we've had here?
No, as far as I know,
Okay.
no one's brought a
'Cause
concern
that's usually
forward.
That's usually a big
But
one
when you
too.
get into this conflict of interest thing and being on the school website and not being part of the school, it's a private business and,
Anything
you
with,
know, using our classroom space.
do we have any tutoring for hire that's taking place in our schools or anything that we know of?
Just the, counseling. Right?
No, that people are getting reimbursed for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's just,
we just
provide space.
Is the driver's ed handled
We
through
don't.
community yet?
There's no
I-
money exchange.
There's not.
Cause that would be my question,
Yeah, I don't
cause
think
that
it-
would be different
I'm just guessing
then.
it's not, just
The
because
students
it's
get
been
listed.
here longer in community than it
Correct.
has.
Yeah.
So, but let me find that out, okay,
It's not the only one listed there.
okay.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, good question. On to 6B then. Were there any things on that particular one?
The change that we made not very long ago, I don't remember when it was, that we had changed it to by point of use is reflected in there,
Yep.
so that was good. And there were no other changes that, there's, you know, lots of typing errors,
There are. So we'll get the,
but I understand Neola will fix that.
oh. Great,
I
why
talked
would
with
I trust that?
Tasia about it this morning.
Okay,
they do, so the process that we were explained when Stu came was that they put out the changes. I don't know why they don't have proofreaders
I
At a
will
time.
proofread.
But then we submit our recommendation, or, you know, whatever we want back to them, and then before they publish it on our website, then they proof it. I don't know why
would
that
they?
process.
We're doing their work for them.
Well, it's $1 saved if they only do it once. with the final of ours too.
But then I suppose they probably do wanna wait until we put back ours.
Because we may make mistakes too.
Some of these are pretty,
Pretty obvious.
yes.
How about?
Isn't that legal, Tom?
How about C? Was there anything with C? 6C?
Yeah. 4230, even though it should parallel 3230, there's nothing.
Why do we have two separate ones?
Because one's for support.
Different
staff, one's for
classifications.
So
professional
they
staff.
should be,
So when you say we have nothing, what do you?
There's none of the green print that's in
Oh,
3230
okay.
is in 4230.
oh,
So I think this is a mistake on the part of Neola.
So, can you add the green stuff in?
Or do you call,
Neil and
Neil
Tom
and-
to get their stuff together?
There's that option too.
Do you want me to do that?
I can,
She loves talking to students.
Do you?
don't say that.
I'll poke my eye out.
I'm just pulling it up here to see if it is on here and if,
It just not
If
visible
the-
to us.
The wrong one came.
well, like, if I pulled the wrong one, I just don't wanna make more work for anyone if I made the mistake.
And did you find the same thing with 4430 then?
no, 4430.01 mirrors.
Okay, so maybe it is just an issue with just that particular, we got the wrong link.
Check one more place. They don't have any green on this one either though.
But the typing errors were different.
Yeah. So somebody needed to see how fast they could do it.
Like,
Never
no.
reread.
So my understanding that we want the same green from
42.
3230 to be reflected.
Yes.
Okay.
That makes sense.
So probably the same crossover too, or just leave that out. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
All right. Do you guys want us to hop down to topics for action? Or you can do that and come back to the board
No,
if we
'cause
can
she's
board
got
it down.
closed session.
No, I'm staying down here before the closed session. Oh, you have to be here anyway. I'm sorry. Okay, I get it. Sorry. Okay. So then, can we bring these four back to the board meeting?
Yep.
All right, great. Thank you. Wonderful. 7, policy committee. You guys set up when you're gonna meet on a regular basis, or
No.
as long as you coordinate it, I'm not gonna worry about it.
thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah,
That's just huge, just huge.
It'll speed the process up,
Yes,
so just
and
let me know when that happens.
I really appreciate it.
So-
What's that?
Let me know when it happens.
Well, and
So-
if there's a lot in the past, you and I met so that whatever we had talked about, we could talk about.
Well, and some of the stuff the administrators.
Right, that's
went
what I was just gonna
through,
say,
right?
just so we
That's very
have
helpful.
that time period for us to be with the admin team.
Yeah.
so,
Get that
Do
input,
we
so.
still want that process, like,
Yes.
Yes.
to go to admin for their
Yes.
recommendations and then,
Absolutely.
If it's
Okay.
pertaining to.
yeah.
so if you can
their stuff,
send
Yes.
6 of them their way, 6 of them their way. I don't know how you wanna do
Believe me,
it.
they're as excited as you guys about doing policy work.
There's just a lot
I
of
know,
them,
that's
so
why we need to get
have to
them
just,
on
like,
time.
wrap our heads around how we want to.
Like 6 at a
Let's
time.
just start
is
eliminating
fine.
some of them.
My only
No, I'm adding.
just my opinion, for what it's worth, 6 at a time has got us where we are currently at.
So we had to do that hard
You know what I mean?
push
So
last year,
four-
is
What's
that
the
what you're
number,
saying?
more doable is what you're
No,
saying?
I'm saying like it's not enough.
Oh, you think way more,
What's the
oh.
number?
That's why
Oh,
last year you
good.
guys got
We
really
have, like,
God.
rough without like counting them out, we have probably about 60 that we need to go through. And in looking at,
And then
other-
next year's will be here.
right, there's a new update coming out within the next 3 weeks, so then there'll be another 40 more.
Okay, I'll do 10. Yeah, stop at 10, no more than 10.
So let's hit it hard, 10 each of the meetings. So there'll be some that we're approving that you guys have looked at, and it'll be 10 new ones of the next meeting. We have to get
Yeah.
through them.
Well, there will only be these 4 on our.
On the next one, and then the
But
July
there'll be
work
10 new
session.
ones.
Or
Majority of the work will be behind the
So
scenes.
Marie, you're saying that you wanna put the first reading of
I
some
think
of
we
the
should.
policies on the next regular session meeting?
so that we can get more of
And
them
then
done.
we'd have to talk about
Ooh.
them and then approve them at the next work session.
Yeah.
So that means we'd be doing 20 a month.
Well, it'd actually be 30 because they'd be rolling, you know what I mean? So the
Yeah, I
first
know.
reading of this one and then it'd be the
Yeah.
second, so you got 20 at a shot. The
People
next
don't
one will
pay
be
me
20
enough.
more. I know, you volunteered. But then we'll get through more of them.
Yeah,
Do we
I'm
have a
fine with that.
deadline?
I'm fine with that.
No, it's just a matter of
Well-
staying up to date, cause as the new updates come out, like regular updates come out twice a year. And then they have the special updates if there's something like
Law
school
change.
safety or, special law change or whatever.
I think it'll get faster if we just get caught up for once.
Yeah, and Neola too, Stu informed us last time we met that they provide like a summary stating why the changes are made, which I think would be helpful, so that it's not a question, and that might help answer some, like, well,
Might
what?
save a phone call.
Right.
Well, yeah, and just offer some explanation and not wondering the back and forth of,
Like some
Why?
of those policies, we really drug our leg up because.
right?
Yeah.
So that resource is available, which is great to know, and it now can be provided to you
So-
guys as you're going through.
You remember that wellness policy that was 5-6 pages long, administrators?
Yeah.
Still waiting on that one.
So we'll hit 10 that will go on for approval and 10 new ones each time. So it'll be
Maybe we
hopefully
can make our
within
own.
each meeting, we'll get 10 done and 10 more started.
We could have done 5 more with that.
Yep, now we gotta
Have
figure it
this
out.
conversation.
Thank you guys for doing that. Read on to. And I know a lot of folks calls on you too, Tasha, thanks for helping push that
Oh,
through.
yeah.
All right, the board retreat discussion, when do we want to have Trevor,
Yeah,
Come.
we just gotta let them know.
after the July work session?
We're having a board retreat with Trevor.
Yep.
Who's Trevor?
Our
Trevor
attorney.
is the attorney. Just a quick presentation he was gonna do, is that right?
No, I can't even remember, yeah, it was.
FBA?
On board roles.
Okay. I don't know if we're doing one.
know,
You
it-
talked with him and he had
Oh,
something
yeah,
already.
it was on board
Was it?
roles, that's what it was.
Okay.
So when can we put that on? Which,
You know, here's
Work
a couple
session.
things that are coming up, just so you know. Okay, so on July 8th, we'll do a video deal with school perceptions, but before that, I would like to, this week I'm meeting with all we have 6 or 7 construction management firms coming up to do a walkthrough and take a look at if they wanna be involved with the project, or interview. We're hoping that we'd probably knock it down to maybe 2, 3, or 4, and have a brief interview with the board before the work session on July 8th, so we can get them on board. And so whoever could make it, say, I think our meeting is at, was it 6?
No,
6:30.
6:30. We'd probably set these up for like 5 or 5:30, do like a 15-20 minute deal with each one, whoever can make it, they can hear the presentation, and then we can talk about, who we'd recommend for construction managers at the work session, so we get that piece rolling. We got, the earliest we could get Virginia, or Victoria McGrath, is our meeting, the second meeting in July is the first time she can come up, but she's updating all the compensation material, and we'll talk about the compensation material beforehand, so you have good questions for her when she's here. And we're not gonna wait for her to get here and then go through the cycle, because the goal is to have whatever we're gonna do in place by this next school year.
Yep.
As far as the compensation plan. So soon as, we should be getting that information from her on all the categories updated, and the model that she's presenting that we can start playing with and start seeing where the holes in it, or what we wanna do, again, before she comes. So we can, if we formulate questions before, we'll give them to her, so when she comes, she can walk us through it.
So if
'Cause
she's
there's some-
coming July 22nd, when are we gonna be doing that? When are we gonna have those discussions? This next month
Well, as soon
meeting?
as we get this
June?
information, but it would be in June and the first session in July, probably the last session in June here. So, and some of this information we can shoot out to you, and we can do it, via,
Yep.
electronically.
Yep.
Just, but boy, we sat at a conference call, and there's a lot of interesting things that we need to consider that, you know, and you guys are making the decision on this, that, her rationale for, how she's doing things.
Yep.
So hopefully we can see those scenarios prior.
As soon as we get them,
Yep.
Dave and I are gonna spend time on dissecting them so we can at least give somewhat of an explanation on how they work. And then really this is all gonna be up to you folks on what you decide to do with it. But we'll have recommendations too, because a lot of it comes down to financial impact and sustainability.
So that's July 8th and Victoria coming July 22nd. So we would have June 18th if we wanted to do Trevor, just a short 15-minute,
June 18th,
No.
17th?
14, and today is the 3rd. You're right, the 17th. You're right.
So Monday the 17th, yeah.
Yep.
And I can see if he's available.
I have the today as the 4th all day until this afternoon. I figured out it's the 3rd. So if that can work for him for just 10 or 15 minutes?
Okay.
And whatever time works, if he wants to be here right at 6:30, we'll do it right then. If he would rather have before that or after that, I think,
That's a 6 o'clock meeting, I think.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
The June
What's
one is, yeah.
6:30?
July's.
It's
When
6:30
they
meetings.
start in July. Goes back to.
So we're gonna try for Trevor for the retreat on June 17th then. Just a short retreat.
I don't understand. What are we gonna accomplish in 10 or 15 minutes?
Well, do you want us to
When
make
he
more
charges
time
us
with
for
him?
another
I just don't
hour.
understand what he's gonna do.
Is he gonna charge us for another one?
Well, of course he will. They don't charge us.
We'll make it worth our while,
They
Ken.
don't go by the minutes.
Let me talk to him and rehash the
Okay.
conversation, because that
Okay.
wasn't even on my memory bank today.
Okay,
so.
and we can tie that in with which the next item is, the board evaluation, because that can be part of that too, so he could actually run through that if he feels more comfortable.
Need a lawyer to tell us how to make that evaluation.
I agree, but there was a reason why you had suggested that. I don't remember it myself, but I know you had suggested having Trevor come, but I can't remember.
I can't either, that's what I gotta think,
Okay, so if not, we can do the eval on the 17th. So I'm open either way. What's the feeling of the board?
Okay, are we supposed to fill it out now and then again during an actual meeting? Is that what are you talking about
I
the
don't even
WASB?
understand.
The WASB
Me
one.
neither.
The
Did you look
WASB
at that
region.
board evaluation tool?
Yeah, we've done those in the past.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it said,
And normally we take the survey and then the
Tally
school
the rate.
perceptions or WASB
WASB
But
does the
then it
analysis
said-
on it, doesn't it? Don't they?
puts the data in
but
and
then it said an actual meeting.
tells us how much we love each other.
And shouldn't that be at a work session, not at a board meeting?
Well, aren't we
But-
supposed to fill it out individually on our own?
right,
I think
and
so.
they'll take it. The only reason it would move it to not a work session is because the work session in July is already taken up with the construction.
Well, then I
And
think
so-
we should move it to the work session later. I mean, it's,
That'd be August then.
In August.
but it needs to be a work session, not a board meeting.
So August work session, we don't have anything else on there right now, so let's do that.
Oh, I'm sure we'll have some construction stuff, but I can't tell you what it
Yeah,
is.
let's do that then. So between now
And
and
budgets.
August, can we facilitate having WASB, setting a date when you guys will complete it by? And then we can get it to WASB so that they have time before the 8th of August to tally our results.
Finish it by the 4th of July.
For sure, I
Yeah.
would say that's a long.
Does it submit somewhere or?
Well,
We have to
I
have a
have
link
some
to do it.
notes that it was made into a Google form. So then I don't know if it was then shared with WASB that way. I don't ever recall, I never sent in paper forms when you guys did this before.
Nope.
So unless that was done by the past president, I'm not sure, but,
This is not a
um,
Google form.
no, this is not, but I
Do you want me to check with them or you wanna check with them? What's your?
I can check with them, that's fine,
And then
cause I don't
we'll
wanna
just-
go forward with making it a Google form if they can't accept a Google form. But
Or maybe they have it, I mean, or in SurveyMonkey or
It
something.
says here,
Yeah.
fillable form.
Yeah, this is not a fillable form.
So we'll find out what that is. It'll come out via email because you're all
Oh.
familiar with it now, and then we'll hopefully have the results
You
for
can
that.
open it in Google Docs.
It doesn't,
But can you submit it?
it doesn't open it in Google Docs anyways.
I think it, because when you click on it, you might be opening it in the preview mode. If you download it, then it may turn into a fillable form.
So we'll try and get a better, clearer understanding of how we should fill it out for them and send it out via email so that they can tally it and have it ready for us by the August work session. All right, so then we're on to topics.
Was it when Trevor, we were gonna have him for our procedures through meetings, especially closed sessions where we had maybe some
You can check.
understandings that needed to be reestablished?
Yep. Yep.
Are you guys following me?
Yep,
Is that why we were not having Trevor come?
that was why we were having him come.
Uh,
Claire-
I don't,
Clarifying,
No idea.
Huh?
what is acceptable procedures, what is acceptable
first I've
behavior.
heard.
Were you here at the meeting?
Yeah, no,
And we didn't
I
talk
know
about
we
that?
talked about it before. So you'll check with Trevor, Dr. Bezick?
Yes,
And that would be for the August work session. We're believing it was on just the correct behavior. I think there's also probably gonna be some meetings put out by, but I haven't seen them yet, from CISA on new board or board functioning. But Trevor could take the place of that. So, August will be our target date. So now we're gonna move on. Is that clear now? I hope.
As mud.
What do you need
So we're
clarification on?
doing interviews with construction managers July 8th.
hopefully we'll be able, that'll be to keep it so it's not an extra meeting coming in.
Right.
You know, I'd like to do it quicker, but I think that'll give us enough time to get that. So I'd like to have those roughly 5:30 if we again, we're talking to about 6 different people. If we narrow it down to 3 or 4 or 2 that we think are really a match, then we'll have them come in and talk to you guys and see what you think. Again, it's all about fitting relationships on that one. Because the percentages and what it's gonna cost, it's probably gonna be pretty universal between any of them, but it's, do we get the A team, good history and things like that. So,
And on July 22nd, Victoria is going to be here for the.
right, for that, the meeting, the actual meeting, Victoria will be here.
And then August 8th, we're having a closed session.
No, it's the eval results. There's no reason for that to be closed.
Eval results of the,
WASB survey of the board.
okay. So then was there something with Trevor too?
If he chats with Trevor, it was on,
Or breach of closed session?
what as board members, what can we do, what should we not be doing? So more to protect the legal stance of the district based on board behavior.
And when is that?
He was gonna
I'll
check with
find
Trevor.
out when Trevor's available.
And it sounded like that would go to the August session as well.
And that's okay.
Now, we've got the June 17th one, we'll only be hitting more of the policies there, but hopefully we might see some of the salary projections.
Hopefully, as soon as we get it, and
We'll
we
get
make
it.
sense of it, you'll get it. So we can do a lot of work ahead of time on that. The other thing that'll come on, probably on that next session will be the training recommendation that they're going through right now. The RFP for training services, trainer. That's right,
trainer.
trainer.
Okay.
Training
Okay.
services.
On the June one, you're
Yeah.
saying? That's correct, okay. Does that clear it up for you a little bit,
Yes.
Lori? Yep. So then are we ready to move on to 10, topics for action?
I move to approve items 10A through D.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Katie, thank you, Catherine. Do we have any questions on that? Great, if none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Wonderful, thank you. The once around, we just did a kind of a once around, so I'm gonna, unless there's something, I'm sorry, does somebody have anything that we maybe did not hit?
Well, I would just like to thank the administrators and Dr. Bezick. We had a wonderful strategic plan meeting
I
this
forgot
morning.
all about that. It was good.
There were 24 people there, lots of community members,
Nice.
2 students, I believe, who gave excellent input. It was a great meeting, and I think we're looking very good on our strategic plan. And the graduation ceremony on Sunday was beautiful.
A lot of good
Did a
compliments
great
on that.
job.
yeah.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Great, thanks, Lori. Did you have anything?
No, I'm good.
Did you have anything? Patty Jo? All right, so then we're gonna be,
Oh, thanks for reminding me.
Yep.
The annual, let's see, September work session, to move the start time to 6 o'clock for the work session piece, cause the annual meeting is that night at 7. Last year, we had a 1-hour work session before that,
sounds good.
Works for me.
cause our meetings are at 6:30.
Yeah.
So,
What day was that again? October?
no,
September.
September, what is it?
9th?
What was the date?
It might be.
It's a work session first.
Yeah, it says September 9th,
Yeah,
So what time will we have to be here then?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock on that night.
If you're late, you're late.
And then the annual meeting will follow that at 7.
Right.
Very good. Thank you for the reminder, Tasia and
Thank
Dr.
you.
Mezek. So, and then, did you talk with Dave about the October meeting? Did that get figured out? Cause usually we pushed it back a week, that second regular session.
No, but looking back at the date, that's the week that it aligned with, so I will just double check with him.
Okay. Sounds good. So then if I could please have an adjourn into closed session, motion to adjourn into closed session. Thank you, Bob. Anybody seconding that? I'll second it. Adjourn to closed session to consider the personal history or disciplinary data of a specific student. The board. Do I need to say all that? Do you want all that?
Yeah, you have to
Yes.
read it and then you have to do a roll call vote.
The board will be discussing the private education data on a student related to enrollment issues. Roll call to support that motion. Bob?
Yes.
Patty Jo? Yes. Catherine?
Yes.
Lori?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Great, we're into closed session now.
It's all yours.
I'm gonna shut that door.
I'll get it.
Like, yeah.
That's all right.
You're quicker than I am anyway.
Get this off too.